Hey guys, Secret History, living in your aquarium here. I am at a local bog, a pond, and I wanted to show you guys the bubbles that come up. And I can tell, just by smelling it, that we've got putrescine in there, which is a decomposition, a telltale sign of decomposition, but it's likely methane also, and sulfur, probably hydrogen sulfide coming up, and you can see how much it actually releases. Now, this bog has been restored, and you'll notice that it has chipped wood, which is very similar to wood that is broken down over time. You can see that it's been replanted almost as like a riparian area, and we've got various sturdy grasses. They've even planted some trees, which I think they're a little off on how close they wanted to plant these trees to these water sources. But you can also see that we've got some hydrocotyl in here, you know, some pennyworts and moneyworts, some creeping Jenny and creeping Charlie in here. No doubt is invasive, but nonetheless, in the middle of a city, it's not a bad thing. This area used to be very polluted, and it's interesting to note how the substrate, quote unquote, of this lake, you see it's silt for the most part, a muddy silt with some clay and some sand aggregate in it, and then leaves, and they die, and then things get kicked up, silt gets over it, it dies, and you get this very rich organic compound, but those leaves keep getting buried by whether it's ducks or wind, just even slight wind, causing the silt to be kicked up, and then the birds come and go out of the water right over here. I mean, they do it all over, and water rises and falls, and you get, very quickly, you get a very rich ecosystem, and you get some interesting plants here too. This looks like it may be a myriaphyllum here, if you check this out. But you can see that there's literally duck poop everywhere. Now, that's not great for fish or humans, but it is making for a very rich plant environment here. And beyond that, what I wanted to show you guys a little more of is, as we walk along this cut bank here that they kind of I guess increased, you can see older spots where animals were coming and going. You know, we have invasive nutrias, not nutrients, and we have all sorts of you know, raccoons, possums, and even beavers that come into the city through the creeks here, coyotes, whatever, and they make their way to and from the water, and they erode that bank line. But what you see is already within a few feet inland, there's mushrooms growing. And if you see a fruiting body of a mushroom, that means that you're definitely walking on top of a whole mycorrhizal ecosystem, as we call it, of it. Now, there's also some ivy here, English ivy, that's very invasive. Looks like we've got a big myriaphyllum clump there. But once those plants start coming back to this area that once may have been devoid of oxygen in the water and just super high in phosphates and nitrates, where you were just getting green water and algae blooms to the point where it was suffocating the water mixed with the silt and everything, now we're finally, after checking back after 5-6 years, we're finally getting enough layers of that leaf material, that the tannins, the aggregate material, and we're finally seeing the true aquatic plants make their way back, whether that's on duck feet, or whether that's on you know, fish in their stomachs, wherever it may be that the seeds and the pieces and parts propagate from. But they've done a nice job restoring this using wood chips up above, and it makes me wonder what the implications of using wood chips on a smaller scale, if we ground them into a really fine powder so that it is already broken down the way that the fungi would break this down. I'll show you guys a spot where there's a good amount of that growth. And you always get the most life in your marginal zones, your riparian zones, where water meets land, where grass meets bark, where forest meets meadow, whatever it may be. It's these transitional zones that really provide life. And this is all completely connected. It works as a giant sponge and filter for this entire park here. The way it drains out into here is very much been intentionally set up as a basin. But you can see here, we've got mushrooms growing here, so they're extracting nutrients, they're fixing nitrates in the ground, whereas the plants, such as the fir trees that have been planted and maples and things, they're fixing sugars. Here we have another wood-loving detrivore mushroom, fiber caps, and you know, we're seeing all sorts of things from sulfur tough mushrooms to pinnaneous mushrooms, to subpinnaneous and Copernus or Copernicus, inky caps and shaggy manes in here. But it's a really rich biodiversity. We've got a good segment of birds and different ducks and things coming back as well. I am interested that they have put holly in here, which is not native. And then we have these are called parrot mushrooms, the slang or the common name for them. But they're a bright red, really pretty mushroom. We've had a couple frosts already, and so they're kind of losing that oomph. But they're another one that is definitely sucking up. Yeah, here we go. Here you can see here, this area has a lot of duck and goose manure in it. Yet we've got all these mushrooms, and what happens is the mushrooms are aggregating all that waste into basically a form that's nitrates and nitrites, ammonia, various compounds that plants can then use as fertilizers, and then animals can eat from the plants, you know, deer or rabbits or whatever it may be. So you really do have a full ecosystem, and it's interesting when you're missing the megafauna, like the vegetation-eating critters, the parts of the puzzle that we miss in our fish hobby of these transitional zones. I mean, for a lake to exist, it generally, if it's a lake full of life, it generally has these areas all around it that are filtration zones. And so I just want to impress that upon you guys, that even for, you know, maybe a 6-acre lake that wraps around like here, this basin here and another one, and everything that the water has rained on the ground and then drained into here, it's all acting as filtration. It's all catching that. And in our aquariums, we just have glass walls and an abrupt stop. And so it's important to notice how much filtration is really required for a thriving and healthy ecosystem. And to me, it's also impressive how much mold and fungi and broken down wood needs to be also worked with. So it's that wood, once it's broken down by the mushroom roots known as mycelium, that really rip that apart and leave you with this kind of fluffy, earthy stuff that mixes with the minerals in the older soils, and in actually the minerals in manure and duck feces. So all these things play a role. It's just when things get out of whack and you end up with thousands of ducks all right here because it's the only water, you know, then we run into problems. But it's a really interesting thing if you go and look at a basin, especially if you know that the best trained engineers right now in ecology and forestry, that they're setting things up like this with these stacks of wood, with the trees, varied forest, varied heights, things all can get different light amounts, then you know that there's a reason they do it. It works. They've been working on it for a long time. And you get these intermittent zones that do flood over. And here we're seeing like aquatic hydrocotyls and things like that, and pennyworts. We're also seeing mushrooms. We're also seeing just straight soil. like a real rich humus-y soil. And then right here we've got the man-made bark, which will break down over time into that and lose its nutrition. Also, you've got these, you know, these polypores. Here we've got some sulfur tuft mushrooms growing right out of a big old log. So these all get broken down, softened up. Woodpeckers and things peck at them, and insects and all sorts of things live in them. Then this area floods out. Those nutrients are washed away into the watershed, and it's easy for them to spike and things, but it's important to know that it's not a monoculture. There are seasons that come and go, and there are layer upon layer of things that help with the filtration of a clean and healthy lake. This is not quite there yet, but it's getting there. The birds are returning, the frogs are back. Before, you'd see gasoline shimmers and things in this lake, and trash and needles and all sorts of crap. So I just wanted to kind of show you guys this little spot because I like how they've redone it. I think it's a smart way to redo things, and I think that it shows really how much filtration needs to happen naturally for us to find. And here we've got some splash cup fungi right here, which are sometimes called bird nest fungi. Biggest spores in the mushroom family. We've got 2 or 3 at the center of each one, but you've really got a wide biodiversity, and my point is that we need this. So when you have a tank with only 2 types of plants and 2 types of substrate, that's not representative of any ecosystem, unless it's maybe like a desert pupfish or something like that. So I just encourage you guys to look around and realize how many square meters or acres or whatever it may be of topsoil, substrate, and then also, you know, even groundwater materials that the water settles into and filters through, sandstones and things like that, that it can be accumulating minerality, that it can be accumulating nutrients, and that it can also be taking those things out, or at least moderating how quickly they come out. And we need to be doing this layering, this lasagna, this natural lasagna of decomposition and remineralization in our own tanks. So when you think about sumps and filters, think about floss and bioballs and all those sort of things. So I don't want to make this video too long. I just wanted to kind of encourage you guys to think about, like, this was done just for this size of water here. And this, now we're getting, you know, sticklebacks, we're getting carp and perch back. Before, we just had catfish and some small least killifish, or not least killifish, but some local Pacific killifish. And maybe, I don't know, the odd trout or something that would come in from the clearer running streams that do feed in here. There's 3 streams that do feed in here. But really, I think we're going to be seeing the genesis of a lot more life in here. And it starts at the shores. It starts where you see the transition with the mushrooms and the decomposition, the breakdown. You can see all these mushrooms here. The mud under there, it doesn't work with just mud. You need the wood, the fibrous material. You need the silt, you need the sand, you need the stone for that bacteria also. And we don't work with fungi much in our aquariums intentionally anyways. And it's a piece that's missing. It's a piece that we don't understand on the small scale, and maybe it's not needed on the small scale, but it is very interesting, the roles that it can play in that ecosystem. So that's why I'm here. Just wanted to share that with you guys. I hope you have a great day. If you enjoy this content, you want to see more of this stuff, here's some lichen growing here too, next to all this trash. If you like this stuff, click the little bell and you'll be notified when there's more. And you can subscribe as well, obviously, if you want to click that bell. Leave a thumbs up if you like this content. That lets me know you like it when I get out into nature and we kind of look at some of the biomimicry we can recreate. And that's really what this is. This is a big fish tank kind of thing out here that they've made so that it would clear up the water, even with the thousands, and I mean it, there's like 1,000 geese, Canada geese and mallards and things that will come and roost up here in the spring and fall and defecate all over the place. So they needed something to clean it up without having to get rid of the ducks. And this has really solved it. It's kind of back to basics, back to nature. And the best way to fix it is copying nature. So, all right, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you later.